Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're going back in time and talking about when we were kids. What's different about life then and now? What would our kids say if they were transported back to 1980? How did we ever survive home perms and party lines? Get ready for lots of laughs as we walk down memory lane together. Let's get started. Hey, Julie.
Hey, Marie.
Hi, Mindy.
Hey, guys. How are y'all today?
We
Good.
are
How are
good.
you?
Yes, I am looking forward to talking with you guys today because we're doing something fun. We're going to be talking about when I was a kid versus now. And I think we've all said that to our kids, usually in anger. When I was a kid, we only went on one vacation and we were happy to go at all.
That's right. We didn't complain about that.
We didn't complain
And
about
I say
anything.
it in a way of fondness. Like, I just feel like it was better back then.
Okay. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, sometimes I say it with a little fondness. Usually it's trying to have me make them grateful for what they have.
Actually, that's true, Marie, because I told you about Bryce and I having a phone call where we were talking about, well, when we were kids, we would have never complained about like doing this. And my parents wouldn't have given us a choice. They would have told us.
Right. Right. Now, if any of our parents are listening, they're probably thinking that is so not true.
That's
You
true.
guys complained plenty.
What did you get in trouble for, Marie? I want to know.
Oh, well, is it school or at home? Or
Everything. Just give us the list.
at school, mostly talking, you
Okay.
know, and just maybe not being serious enough. And then at home, usually mouthing off, arguing. A lot of it has to do
Eye-rolling.
with the talking, you know, the attitude, the...
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay. How about you, Julie? What'd you get in trouble for?
Well, believe it or not, in school, it was talking, which is pretty funny.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I remember on my report card, I got U's in conduct, excessive talking,
Uh-oh.
and had trouble staying in my seat. And that was my younger years. I got really serious later on, but that was my
Uh-huh.
younger years.
Yes.
And I don't remember getting in trouble too much at home, except for maybe I couldn't really shrug my shoulders at my mom or roll my eyes.
Ooh. Uh-oh.
She didn't appreciate that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. For me at school, we would have gotten along well. I definitely got in trouble for talking. I got detention for it a couple of times. And I got in trouble for chewing gum. And
These
then
are such high crimes, Mindy.
I know, right? My goodness. But hey, look how great we turned out.
I know.
I mean, of course, now we talk for fun. We talk for our podcast. So I think that's kind of fitting.
Right, right. Well, we've got a lot of topics here today to go through when I was a kid, but I think one of the ones we immediately gravitated towards was when I was a kid, how was TV and entertainment different? So how was it different for you guys?
Oh my gosh. I remember the big Magnavox TV sitting on the floor, and that was the nice one, you know?
Right.
And then if you were lucky enough to have a stereo system, well, that either flanked both sides of the huge TV, but you all had to agree on the same channel because you only had one TV in the house, you know?
Right.
And so you're not going to another room, picture inside a picture thing.
No, and there's no remote. So if anyone's
Nope.
going to change a channel, you're going to get up and physically walk over and change the dial.
And that's going to be the kid, which was me.
I know the kid had to change
Get up
the
and
channel.
change the channel.
You're
Turn it down,
right.
turn it up.
You're right. And you know, you didn't have as many channels, so you remembered the time of your show and the channel of your show, and you made sure you were there.
Right. And if
we
you missed
never
it,
had cable.
you
We
were
just
out of
had
luck.
the 3 networks and PBS. That was
Mhm.
it.
That's right.
Yes.
Right.
And we lived way out in the country where we got it with an antenna. And I can remember one of us, if it was just the kids, one of us would sit in the living room and one of us would go outside to where you would turn the antenna. And it could be snowing and really super cold living in New York State. And you'd yell at the top of your lungs, "Is it better? No, turn it to the left. Is it better now?" And even when it was, in quotes, good, it was still fuzzy.
It was
That
fuzzy.
sounds pretty primitive, Marie.
It was.
And one other thing I remember is when a movie, like one of the big ones I remember that showed every year was The Wizard of Oz.
Oh,
And
yes.
it seems like it always came on in the fall, and I would
Yes.
just wait for it.
Oh,
to,
you'd
like,
be so excited to watch
because
it.
you had to be home. There was no recording it. You had to be there. And I think it
Right.
was usually a Sunday night.
And that
Right.
was the only way for you to see it. You couldn't go and rent a video
No.
or order on
Right.
Amazon. I mean, if you missed it that fall, you had to wait till the next fall for
Yeah.
it to
That
come
was
around.
that was before Blockbuster came out.
Right.
Which is funny that in our time, Blockbuster got really, really popular and it's already gone.
I know.
But yeah, that's
Same
just
thing
like
with
the,
Miss America. Did you
the
live
Miss
for that
America
one?
contest.
The
We
pageant? Yeah.
did. I remember one year there was a redhead named Mindy, and I was so excited that there was a contestant named Mindy, and I may have been from like Oklahoma. I don't know. I mean, the Olympics was so fun to watch.
Yeah.
The Christmas movies, when those would come on, it was a
The
big deal. Like
claymation.
our kids right now, it's like we watch Christmas movies whenever we want to. It's not as big of an event anymore.
Yeah.
You
You
can
know,
see it anytime.
Yeah, that's the
Right.
thing that I sort of miss about having less shows was if you watched the A-Team, so did
Right.
all your friends. Everybody knew
MacGyver.
who the characters were on the popular shows because that's
Right.
all there was to watch.
Yeah.
You're so right. Magnum
Yeah.
PI, MacGyver.
Everybody was talking about the same thing.
The Dukes of
You're right.
Hazzard.
Oh yes. Oh,
Yeah.
those are good memories.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
No, have you
Dial-up.
tried to watch them now? Have you tried to show those to your kids?
Well, I haven't
Some.
tried to show it to my kids, but I remember, I think I was turning 30 or around thereabouts, and the Dukes of Hazzard was having a reunion episode. So I had a party at our house for like our age group, people that had grown up
Uh-huh.
watching the Dukes of Hazzard.
Uh-huh.
But the movie or the reunion thing was so
Those are
cheesy,
usually
you
so
know?
bad.
Yeah, was that when they did the remake with
I
Jessica
don't
Simpson?
remember. I
Yes, they
don't.
did a remake.
This was quite a while ago, but I
Okay.
had such a crush on John Schneider. I saw on Facebook or something the other day that he got married or something. It's just so funny that now those are just regular people. But when I was
know.
growing up, I mean, they were heroic.
Like Wonder Woman was
Right.
my girl.
Oh, yes.
And do you remember the Underoos?
yes, yes, yes.
I was Wonder Woman. Okay, so we talked about like TVs. So it seems like we could easily go into talking about phones because the phone was such a distinctive thing back then. And of course, now everyone has a phone.
Right,
So-
right.
I just remember waiting for my friend to call me. And I knew it was for me. And I'd have to stretch that cord all the way around the corner into the laundry room and shut the door because my brother would be trying to irritate me. And he would stand outside the door and he would sing on the phone again.
Oh.
Just can't wait to get on the phone again. And then your parents would be like, you can't stay on the phone too long, Mindy, because so-and-so is supposed to call, because you didn't have like,
Call
you know,
waiting
a
or
call waiting.
Oh,
or
yeah.
you
That's something our kids probably would not understand is that you got a busy signal
didn't-
and no one could reach your house if you were on the phone. Yeah, I remember that. It's like, make it short. I'm waiting on this call or whatever.
That's right.
right, right.
And you had to keep trying the person.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
If it was busy.
Well, I can remember when I was real young, we actually had a party line, which was you share with your neighbors. So, like,
Oh, my
if you
goodness.
talked on the
Oh.
phone, the neighbor could quietly get on and listen. Now, that was when I was in elementary age.
Mhm.
And so by the time I would have cared what anyone was saying to me on the phone, we didn't have that anymore. But
Uh-huh.
I think about my parents, like, they couldn't even have a private phone conversation.
So weird. Yeah.
Ah,
Makes
that
me
is-
think of Green Acres, where, the guy had
Interest-
to go climb up the telephone pole to talk on the
Yes.
and all the neighbors knew what he was talking about.
Yes. Well, I have to bring up when I was a kid with phones because sometimes I've suggested that my kids look up a phone number and make a phone
Right.
call.
Right.
And one, I don't even think they know how to use the phone book.
Mhm.
And
Right.
two, they consider that stalking. To call
Oh.
a private person by looking up their number in the phone book would be stalking, and they refuse to do it. Now, isn't
Right.
that just
No,
so
you
weird?
have to have permission to call someone. You can't just call them.
Yeah, it's
No.
true. When
That's
I've
great.
encouraged Abby to call someone, she texts them. And I'm like, why wouldn't you call? She's like, because that's more invasive.
Yeah, but they're not answering your text, and we really need the answer now. Well, they just refuse to call.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I remember the cool phone back when I was a teenager or middle school was, do you remember the clear phone?
Oh, yeah, it had
And
like
you
the
could say-
wires.
Yes, yes. So you guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
oh man, I wanted that phone so bad. And of course, that was nothing compared to the price of the cool phone now.
Right. Well, it's
yeah.
so funny because if my kids were left on a deserted island and had to make a phone call with a rotary dial phone, I don't think they would know how to do it.
Right.
Would you even know how to do it, Mindy?
Yes, I would.
Yes.
My grandmother actually had the rotary
Okay.
phone. What is so funny, the other day I was like, I guess I need to learn our home phone number. Well, we got a landline phone. It just came with like our internet package when we moved to Pennsylvania a year ago. I don't know our home phone number. I had to write it on a card. It's sitting out there in the kitchen so that I can try to look at it and try to remember it. I'm having a really hard time learning my home phone number.
Well, and when would you ever use it?
I know. I told the kids, I said, just type it in your phone and save it as a contact, like just in case you ever,
Right.
are trying to call home.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Now, Mindy, you probably don't because you moved, but I lived in the same house until I got married. And then my mom had that same phone number until she moved here to Nashville, and I still remember it. And I can remember a few of my neighbors' numbers because I lived there so long.
Yes.
And I called that number so much.
I remembered some phone numbers for a long time, but now all the numbers get mixed up.
Yeah.
I've had so many home phone numbers.
If I had to call my kids because I lost my phone, I would only be able to call my two oldest because those are the only ones that I remember.
I know. Isn't that funny?
And I don't think my kids could call each other. Like they don't know each other's phone numbers. It's only through contacts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is just really weird.
And so we didn't talk to our parents all day at school.
Yes.
We didn't talk, we might be
gave
driving and we didn't. I remember my parents would, when I first learned to drive, I would go to a friend's house and she lived pretty far away. And they would always say, please call me when you get there, on their home phone.
That's
And I
right.
usually forgot.
I know.
Way less contact and way less awareness of what was going on with your kids. And
Right.
you just
No,
had to trust them more.
Like our parents just had it so easy. When we left on the bus, they didn't have to hear from us until we got home.
Yes. I can remember when my oldest moved from middle school to high school. In middle school, you were not allowed to have your cell phone with you during the day. And when she moved over to high school, all of a sudden you were allowed to. And then I'm getting texts in the middle of the day. And it's like, what? Like, you're supposed to be at school. I don't want to hear you complain about this test or this teacher or like, I'm supposed to not hear from you. You work that out on your own. Like,
I know. I feel like I'm parenting more while they're at school sometimes than when they're at home because my son Grant, that was the big joke last year, was he won't text me outside of school, but in school, he has all the time in the world to text me.
Yes.
So that's when he would text me back. And I'm like, why would you do that?
You should block that caller during the hours of school.
I know, right?
Or they're bored with whatever the teacher's talking about. Yeah. So I'll just get a text that says, Mom. Well, when I get a text that says, Mom, my blood pressure rises because I'm thinking, Mom, I've been kidnapped. And this is the one word that I'm allowed to text out.
Exactly. Or the school's under a bomb threat.
Right.
Which happens a lot now these days.
I know. And instead it's like, what? Oh, I'm so bored. And then
like,
how's Benny doing?
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to be interrupted to answer questions about how the cat is doing in the middle of the afternoon.
Y'all should block those calls.
Julie, I like that idea. Mine is like, I left my pants at home. I'm like, how'd you leave your pants at home?
Yeah, what are you wearing on your body?
What are you wearing? Or it's, hey, Mom, can you run this to the school? And honestly, even though my kids do have the capability to ask, I tell them no for those because I feel like they have to learn to do it. If I say no the first time, then, if they go hungry through lunch, what school is going to let your kid go hungry? None of them.
Yeah.
So if they forget their lunch or their pants or whatever they've forgotten, they'll remember next time.
Right. Well, I try to think, if you couldn't have gotten a hold of me, what would you have done? Well, do that thing, whatever that thing would have been to solve your problem. Do that.
They never have to think about that.
I know. I think that they're not going to plan ahead. If I'm constantly running the things to them, then I'm the one that's being responsible.
Right.
Because then we're dropping everything that we have. I'm like, I might as well homeschool.
Right.
If I'm going to talk to you this much during the school day.
Yes. I mean, the only time the cell phones are convenient is when I want to get a hold of them. Like,
I know.
Hey, I got into the dermatologist unexpectedly. I'll pick you up at 1:20. Or like something that would be a convenience thing for me. Then I'm more than happy that they have a phone.
It's true.
And they're going, great, my mom's texting me again.
Right. Right.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about food, because a lot of times when my kids are asking me to eat out, you know, they're always like, how come we don't eat out as much as so-and-so? Or why can't we just eat out? And eating out was an event when we were kids.
Right.
It was not just mom can't think of anything for dinner, so we're going to head out to a restaurant.
Oh, no, it was a planned thing. On a Friday night, we would go to Shakey's Pizza.
Oh, and I feel like we
Pizza
get
Hut.
dressed nice because it was an event. I got so excited to go out to eat. I feel like my kids are like, oh, we don't want to go anywhere. We don't want to go out to eat, because I loved going out to eat as a kid. So as an adult, I automatically think my kids are going to love it too. And they don't.
I want to be those families that order pizza every Friday night. That would be check mark off my list. My kids won't eat pizza if I order it.
Isn't that funny?
I would have died and gone to heaven if my mom had ordered pizza when I was growing up.
I know. Our kids are saying things like, well, that's not very healthy.
Yes.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? You clean your mouth out with soap.
It's not supposed to be healthy. It's Friday night. Can't we have one fun meal?
Like my
Pizza's
mother-in-law.
a staple in our house.
Yeah, you have to do like the cauliflower crust and the kale and the grilled chicken and like all that stuff. But I was going to say, like, my mother-in-law is here right now. So today I said, okay, we're going to take grandma out tonight. It's her last night here. We're going to go to the ice cream shop in downtown Phoenixville. And it's so good. They have grandma's favorite flavor. The kids are like, I don't want to go out for ice cream. And then I get from Jacob, like, ice cream's not very healthy. And don't let dad eat ice cream because he's trying to cut back right now.
Yes.
Like, what is wrong with you kids? Eat the ice cream.
Yes. I can remember that going to McDonald's and getting a Happy Meal, that was a reward for a good report card.
It is a bad word now. You cannot say McDonald's.
Yeah, we only went to McDonald's on road trips too.
Yeah.
Yes.
McDonald's was
I can remember the first
thing.
McDonald's I went to. Yeah, it was a big deal.
Oh, I loved McDonald's. And when I was a kid, Burger King was my absolute favorite restaurant. Growing up on military bases, that's the only restaurant they had. So for me, it was a huge treat if my parents would take us out for Burger King. And do you remember when they would run the 5 Whoppers for $5 special? Oh man, that was our favorite dinner. If they were running that special, we're like, oh, we get Burger King for dinner because they have the 5 for $5.
I remember my grandmother loving Burger King. And when I could drive, she would say, let's go out to lunch. And I'd drive and pick her up. And we always went to Burger King.
Yeah.
It's so funny because my grandmother loved Taco Bell. Now, you can't pay me enough to eat at Taco Bell. But when she would come to visit, we'd say, where do you want to go to lunch? She would pick Taco Bell. She loved it.
Okay, so let's talk about what do our kids, where do they want to go out to eat if they can pick? Mine pick Panera.
Yes, I was going to say most my girls usually pick Panera, which is not cheap.
I love Panera.
Like,
it's not cheap.
I'm walking out at like $11 or $12 a person. Like, I consider in my mind Panera fast food, and if I'm going to spend $11 or $12 a person, I'd rather just spend a little bit more and get a little bit better.
Right.
And do you ever feel full when you leave Panera?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, when I was growing up, and I don't know when this changed, no restaurants were open on Sunday.
Oh, that's true. You're right,
okay.
Julie.
Which is really hard to believe.
Like
that
stores
restaurants were closed.
Right.
A lot of stores were closed and restaurants. So you didn't get that option on Sunday.
Even taking away whether you agree with opening on Sunday or not, I just wish that more places were closed on Sunday because it would make parenting easier. Nope, sorry, we can't go to the mall. Take all that off the table. Nope, sorry, we can't do that. It's closed. It would be like a true day of, gonna have to find something else to do.
It is a day of rest.
It did kind of separate Sunday and set it apart. It made it a more of a family day, or to do things differently that day.
Definitely. Well, what about food as far as like there were no DoorDashes or, you're sitting at your desk and, I think I want Cheesecake Factory today. I'll just order it on my phone and they'll show up. No, that did not happen.
No. I don't even remember pizza delivery, really. I mean,
no, I don't
think
we
went
there
out
was.
for pizza.
Yeah.
Well, let alone like the pickup list that you can do at like Kroger, the grocery shopping, or you can have groceries delivered to your door, or you can have like organic vegetables delivered to your door. You can have anything delivered to your door now.
Right.
And that's all new just in our generation.
Some things weren't better when we were kids, and some things were.
It's true.
Let's just talk about something that was a lot different when we were kids. Clothes. We bought one new pair of sneakers when you went back to school, and you wore that pair of sneakers until the following year before you went back.
And I remember back to school shopping. It was an event. We went one day, got it all, and that was your fall fashion. That was it. It didn't change. And I think clothing changes weekly now. New stuff come into the stores all the time, but we didn't think of it like that. It was in season. It was in style for that year or years.
I know, you're right. And so, Julie, how many seasons were you saying that they go through now?
Well, I watched this documentary on this, what they call fast fashion, and they say now there's 52 seasons because you could buy new things weekly.
Oh.
And clothes are just more disposable. You buy things to wear to this or to that, and then you just get rid of it. I'm talking about Old Navy level clothing, cheaper things. I got baskets of clothes from my next door neighbor. The hand-me-downs would come from their oldest daughter, and I would go through them, and they lasted. They were still in style, and I hoped they fit because she had cute stuff.
Well, and not only that, but you had some new clothes to start school, and then if you wanted anything new, you had to put it on your Christmas list. And so then when you went back after Christmas break, people might be wearing some new clothes again because they had gotten stuff for Christmas.
I do remember, funny story, my Aunt Jenny was the only one that would kind of splurge at Christmas. And she bought me this black denim Guess mini skirt that
Mindy.
Loved. I loved that little Guess black mini skirt. And I remember when I outgrew it, I took the Guess tag, I took it off of the skirt so I could sew it on another pair of jeans. Did you guys ever do that?
Or maybe I did that not, but I could see why you would want to.
My thrifty self. I did. I would take that Guess tag off and I would sew it on the back of my denim jeans. And I did it probably. I used that thing probably 3 times.
Did you guys remember the catalogs? We had the Sears catalog, and I would go, and this was when I was really young, could mark toys and circle them and leave bookmarks in there for my parents.
Oh, yeah. I remember my parents putting my Barbie dream house on layaway for Christmas.
Oh, well, layaway is another thing. I don't know if my kids really understand what layaway is.
What is layaway? Exactly.
Did your mom ever collect stamps from the grocery store and put them in little books, and then you would go to the store and redeem them for
my
stuff?
mom did. Yeah, you could redeem them for dishware and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
No.
I think she got some dishes that way. I think if you saved a lot, you could get pots and pans.
And there were even some kids stuff, I remember.
Okay.
I loved putting the stamps in those books.
I was going to bring up fashion. We were talking about catalogs. Do you guys remember those patterns that you could buy at the back of Walmart? If you had somebody that could sew, if you're wanting the latest fashion, you would go buy a pattern to try to make it. Do you remember? My mom might be able to find a picture of me wearing my jumper that my Aunt Jenny made for me from a pattern, and it had the huge collar. And they made them into, they had shorts and they had pants. I couldn't do the shorts, but I
didn't have the shorts. Yeah, I loved those. I think they were jumpsuits or rompers, and I was into Laura Ashley, and they made those. And Laura Ashley was kind of expensive, so I made my own because you could buy Laura Ashley patterns.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes. Now, Marie, did you fall for the jumper thing?
I don't remember if I had the jumpers, but I know my mom would go into the fabric store and we would pick out patterns. And I mean, she was not hesitant to make something if it was too expensive to buy.
I'll say, so my Aunt Jenny was just a very talented seamstress. So she made the jumper for me. And then she actually made my prom dress my senior year of high school that I attended with my husband.
Oh, we need to see a picture of that.
Wow. We weren't married at the time. I will point that out.
That's really impressive to make a dress when the person's not there for fittings and everything.
We were states away. I told her the color. I sent her my measurements, and I gave her a picture and I showed her the pattern. So she made it from a pattern.
I mean, nowadays, and my mom has said this many times, it's actually more expensive to make your own clothes than it would be to just go out and buy clothes, because clothing prices have decreased so much.
Right. You can find things so much cheaper.
I just remember we had much less clothing. Like in 5th grade, I specifically remember I had 2 pairs of jeans. the whole year.
That's why when you go to look at a house right now, if the house is older, look at how big the closets are, people.
Right.
There's a reason our closets now are these huge, massive walk-in closets.
Yes. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about technology. As we were laughing because email. When I was a kid, there was no email. But I can remember the first time I was introduced to email was in college. And I don't even remember if I ever used a computer. I know I took a typing class, which I don't even think the kids take anymore. Took a typing class in high school. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to college, they had computers. And I remember the professor saying, all right, there's email now. You've got to pick out someone else in the class that you're going to email. And I just remember we didn't even know what to write in the emails. And we thought, who's ever going to use emails? Like, we'll do this for him, but we're never going to use email outside of this class. And it's just amazing. What would we do without email now?
Oh my gosh. Well, I do remember using computers. We had computer lab when I was in maybe 5th grade, and we would play the Oregon Trail at school.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, do you remember doing the Oregon Trail?
I remember my kids playing the Oregon Trail.
Oh, and then later it was Carmen Sandiego. I loved getting a chance to play Carmen Sandiego. But I'm trying to remember when my own family actually got a computer in our home, because that was a really big deal.
Yeah, and they weren't very user-friendly back then. I remember my dad, it was a huge learning curve. He was the first one to have one in our family. And I just remember floppy disk and all those things that he would have to store things on. And I just remember thinking, this is way too complicated for me. And I mean, the only computers I used were at the school library.
Right.
I remember my dad had dial-up internet. And
the dial-up.
You would hear the little weird noise and when it was connecting, and it took forever. You know, a picture would download slowly across your screen, and it just took so much patience.
Rural areas, they've just gotten out of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, we had dial-up probably until Abigail and Davis were in elementary school. We had dial-up internet. Yeah. I don't think my 3 younger ones can remember dial-up internet, but my 2 older ones do.
Right. If you watch the movie You've Got Mail, I love it because they do the sound of it connecting to the internet. Right. And I just love that so much.
So school, you guys, school was so different. And I think it's probably shocking to everybody whose oldest starts kindergarten right from like basically day one. School is so different from when you went to school. It's always changing. But of course, it's really different from when we went to school.
I'm pretty sure parents are at the school all the time now.
Right.
Like my parents were never at the school.
And I rode my bike to school and rode it home or walked.
Wow.
And she picked me up in bad weather and stuff. But I loved that freedom of riding my bike with my friends home. And we lived right near the school.
Oh,
That's changed.
That.
Yes.
Well, do you guys remember corporal punishment at school? Did you have that?
I don't think we actually had it, but I think it was something people could get, but I don't know anyone that did get it.
We had it.
But I mean, our principal had a paddle in the office, Mr. Kessler, and he was a very big man, sweetest man in the world. He and his wife was the secretary. He was the principal, and you could get sent down and get a spanking.
Oh, yes. Back in high school, I was wearing that black Guess denim mini skirt, and the school was concerned it was more than 3 inches above my knee. And there was a rule about that. So in the middle of the hallway, as classes were changing, I had to get on my knees, and a teacher got down with a ruler and touched it to the floor to make sure that it was no more than 3 inches above my knees.
And it wasn't?
Did you get to keep it?
I got to keep it. I made sure to pull it down just a little. But I mean, when you're tall and you have long legs, things look shorter on you. Yeah. And so
one more thing I thought about was the ACT.
Oh my
SAT,
goodness.
whichever one your school took. I just remember one day, I mean, I'm sure my mom maybe had gotten a notice. Yeah. It was like, okay, today's ACT day. And you just stopped everything and took the test all day.
I have to take the ACT
and
today.
Then, that was it. And then you got your score, and there was no retaking it, no prep, no study.
No.
It was just, that's what you got.
Right. If everyone was just winging it, then all those winged scores would compare against each other and you'd look fine. You know,
it would all be equal. Yeah.
My kids can't even say to me, hey, what'd you get on your test? Because it's not a fair comparison. They've had prep and all this other thing compared to our scores when we just showed up and took them.
I know. Do you guys even remember what you got?
I do. And it was low. I always tell my kids, because I think I made her 21.
Yeah.
And I went to college and I graduated pharmacy school with a doctorate, and I was actually valedictorian in my class. And I always tell them that.
Yeah,
because
that's good.
I
That's a
got
good
21.
story.
It was no reflection on how I performed in college.
Isn't that
I just
wild,
didn't test
Julie?
well that day.
Well, it's
So I
not
was kind
even
of proud of
about
that
not
score.
testing well, Julie,
Yeah.
because probably it was rare for people to get much above that.
My kids kind of go, Mom, I thought you were
Yeah.
smart, or, and I said, I was. I was
you were.
valedictorian.
That's
But
right.
that test just goes to show you it's just not a great reflection of
No,
how you're
it's
going to
not.
do. There's so much more. I mean, I guess it could be a baseline.
Right.
It's one indicator, but there's just so much more.
Right.
Your drive, your willingness to learn.
It's not the whole picture of the whole child. I
Right.
totally agree.
Well,
with
and it's
you.
not fair to compare your 21 when you woke up that morning, took it unprepared versus somebody that's prepared for 8 weeks and taken practice tests. Those are not the same situations, which that's why I'm saying you can't compare your score to your kids because their environment is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I think I do remember some kids that maybe went to some Ivy League schools from my school and they made, 25. Like that was the high score.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pictures. Let's talk about photography because it was so different with pictures back then. I remember my mom taking a bunch of pictures and then you'd wait a month to get them back. And then you're like, oh, wait, that color didn't look good on me at all.
Right.
Oh, these are all blurry.
Exactly. That
Yes.
outfit is not attractive. Like our family would go to, was it Olin Mills? That was like the premier place to go, or you could go to the Sears photography studio or the Pennies, JC Penney's. And now, I mean, my favorite photographers are like Marie's daughter. It's someone that has a great eye for photography, that they're not at the studio.
Not in a studio.
Yeah, like you're not going to a studio. Like you meet and you go outside and you can do it at your house. And it's just, they travel with you anywhere. It's amazing.
Right.
What about sports? Did you guys play sports or any extracurricular activities? I feel like those have kind of taken over.
I made every sports team that I wanted to be on because I could.
I made the cheerleading squad barely able to make a cartwheel.
Yeah, not anymore.
You didn't have to take gymnastics since the time you were 3 and go to this or that,
Yeah. And I remember people saying, oh, that's just Atlanta. And then we moved to Nashville. Oh, that's just Nashville. And we moved to Knoxville. Oh, that's just Knoxville. I'm like, okay, guys, I'm just going to tell you right now, that's everywhere. Every place I have ever lived now with my children has been that way. There's not one community that doesn't deal with, the sports thing now. I think about like the football recruiting camps that I took Grant to. I'm like, I can't imagine my parents driving me around to try to get a scholarship. For me, it was cheer or softball or something like that. And I'm like, wow, sports is so elevated now and everyone wants to be a star.
But it was just so fun. I knew I wasn't the best.
Yeah.
I was kind of right there in the middle, but it was still really, really fun. You didn't have to feel like if you weren't just the superstar that you just, you weren't worth anything to the team or whatever.
Bryce and I were talking about this the other day, and we were talking to Jacob and Nathaniel about it. And we said they feel nervous about trying to do a sport because they're like, well, what if I'm not good? And I'm like, well, this is the time in your life to try it. Once you graduate high school, you won't have an opportunity to just go play on a basketball team or to go play on a soccer team or a football team. It's a time in your life that you can practice team sports. You're not supposed to be the best. It's your opportunity to be a part of a team, to have a common goal, to listen to your coach, to have wins, to have losses. And there's so much learned in sports. So I want my kids to have that experience, but they really are kind of, nervous because they're like, well, my friend's been, on this travel team for years and I haven't done that. So I don't think I can go out and play.
Yeah. Right. All right. This makes me think of something else. Playing outside.
Oh, yes. Jumping through
I went
the
outside and I just stayed outside until my mom made me come in at night, and she would just yell out the front door my name, and I'd hear her and come. Yesterday, I was driving through our neighborhood and I just about wrecked my car because I saw there was a yard the house was on a hill, and 2 little boys they looked maybe 8 or 9. They were setting up the slip and slide by themselves, hooking up the hose, and they had all these kind of things they were going to crash through. And It just made me so happy to think they are not inside playing video games. They are not on the computer. And I never see that. Do you ever see that in your neighborhood? They were just out in the front yard playing.
We're the ones doing it, and we're the hillbillies.
Yeah. I almost just shouted out to them, way to go, kids.
Way to go. I know. I did kick my boys outside yesterday. They played badminton, just the two of them. But I remember jumping through the sprinkler, playing with the water hose and making up all these like games with the neighborhood kids and limbo with the water hose and like snake and having to jump over it. I mean, we would do these relay races for hours and hours outside. But I don't know that my kids have an opportunity to explore, you know,
and your imagination just opens up. You know,
it does. I had my Barbies and my Barbie car out there and having great adventures together.
Yeah, I had a tree house and I had my Barbie camper up there and my Barbies, and I made lunch and took it up there.
Yes. Did you guys used to camp out in the backyard? Like you would set the tent up with your friends?
I never even liked camping back then, Mindy.
Oh, Marie.
Yeah, I would always beg to sleep in the backyard.
We would camp. And there was that fresh dew in the morning where everything was just wet.
Yeah, that's when it wasn't so fun.
That's why I hate camping.
Oh, that's so funny, Marie. At least you're consistent, right?
I know. Never like to be wet and cold. All right, you guys. Tell me your worst hairstyle. Like when you see the picture, you literally cringe.
Okay, it's on my grandmother's wall right now.
Oh.
and I'm literally cringing because it's the one picture I wish never happened. And my kids have seen it and taken pictures with their phones of it. My hair is crimped. It's crimped really big. And the ends are straight because you could never get the ends quite right when you use the crimper. And my bangs are teased in this massive rat's nest on the front of my forehead. It is so, and I'm wearing a collared shirt over a sweater with like a kitten on it or something. It is the epitome of the awkward photo. And my Mima, love that woman. Why, Mima, why?
I've had so many better pictures since then.
Take that picture off the wall. It shouldn't even be framed.
You remember those hairstyles where they would cut it kind of short in the front and then leave like more in the back? What was it called? And then you'd feather the sides?
Yes, it was called Awful.
What was it called? Oh, yeah.
Farrah Fawcett.
It was called...
Oh, is that what it was from? But Farrah Fawcett's
her
just
hair
looked
was the
a
feathered.
lot better. Hers looked a lot better.
Princess Diana had the feathered hair.
I mean, feathered hair was big. But how about a home perm? I mean, you hadn't experienced life in the 80s if your mom did not sit down and give you a home perm.
It's kind of funny because when I met John, that's how my hair looked.
I remember your hair being curly.
Yeah. And so to this day, he'll look at that picture and goes, that's just how I love your hair. And
are you kidding
me? Yeah, he would say, can you do that again?
Oh my goodness. John, you don't know what you're asking.
To my hair.
It's true.
Would you ever sit? I mean, I'm picturing my mom sitting me down in 6th grade or 7th grade. Would you ever sit your daughter down nowadays with her beautiful natural hair and think, let me put these little rollers and these chemicals on at home. I have zero training, but I'm going to give her a home perm.
Okay. Well, my
didn't even
Mima,
have YouTube to look it up.
No. I know. I said YouTube. My Mima is a cosmetologist. It was like my dream growing up to use her vanity, but she had the ladies that came once a week that she would do. She'd set their hair in rollers and all that stuff. And she had the dryer irons around her house. So she gave me my first perm. I was actually at home sick. My mom was actually a teacher's aide.
What a better time to.
Yeah. So I'm at my Mima's house and she's like, oh, well, let's give you a perm. Well, it didn't take. So she gave me one right on top of it. That sucker had to grow out. It would not leave. And she permed my bangs. Have you ever seen permed bangs?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, if you went to pick up your daughter from your mother's house and she'd been babysitting and she had given your daughter a perm?
Yeah, that was us. To highlight my hair in the summer, you just sprayed sun in on it.
Yes. Or lemon juice, and you just sit out there. And,
that's right.
And try to get some highlights.
That's
I'm surprised we have any hair left.
I know.
Some hairstyles come and go, but you do not see home perms coming back into fashion.
No, you don't see the crimper iron
I don't even
back,
think girls that are in cosmetology school are taught. They don't even know how to give one. I don't think they're taught perms anymore.
Okay.
Really?
Well, thank goodness for that.
It's like a toxin, probably.
Right.
Oh, goodness.
Right. Well, I know you talk about, people are concerned. Can I have organic sunscreen for my kid?
Oh my God.
My mother was pouring chemicals that she had no business even knowing what it was. Yeah. She had no training.
Mixing
all
chemicals.
over my
you
head.
Had to mix them so they could interact and start working.
That's true.
On your head.
See, somehow we're all fine.
Yeah. Maybe.
We need to find some of these awkward hairstyles. And these were like the truth about when I was a kid. Not so much the story about like walking 2 miles uphill in the snow every day to school.
We don't think of it as difficult or hard.
No.
Even though we didn't have it as easy, I still look back on it as a fond time. Like I look back at it as a better time.
Yeah. Such a fun conversation.
Yes, it's always fun. And maybe we can check ourselves next time we go to say, well, when I was a kid.
Exactly.
And think, was it really that way or whatever?
I know. Are we just looking at it with rose-colored glasses at this point?
Yes. And if any listeners
just remembering the good parts.
If any listeners want to bring us back to reality or share what something was like when they were a kid,
I know.
Feel free to comment on our Instagram posts or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. All right, let's move into I'm a Fan. Mindy, do you want to start out this week and let us know what you're a fan of?
Yes, I would love to. I have mentioned multiple times that I love to work out and that unfortunately I usually live in my workout clothes the rest of the day. I have been on the hunt for my favorite workout pants. Different people, they want different things. I have found that my favorite place to get workout pants is Old Navy.
Oh.
I've spent a fortune on more expensive brands. I've tried a lot of different kinds, and I keep coming back to Old Navy, the different links that they provide. And then they also have different heights for the waist. So they have like a medium height, then they have high-waisted pants. You can go online and there you can get petites, you can get talls, which I love because sometimes I want the cropped pant, but I want it in a tall because I want it to kind of come down a little bit further. So there's just so many options, but they wash well. They're thick enough, like when you do a squat, you pretty much can't see like your underwear through them. I mean,
important.
Very important. I always check in the mirror. I keep coming back to Old Navy workout pants and watch for sales because they get even cheaper.
Yeah, that's great because I was looking at my workout pants and I was like, I need to get some more, but I never know where to really go, where it's worth it. So I'll definitely check into that. Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
Well, I'm a fan of a new treat that I made. After I travel someplace and I've had something new, I want to come home and recreate it. So I've been having these for breakfast, sometimes for dinner at night. And it's called a lassi, Lassi, and it's an Indian yogurt drink. And it's super easy to make. It's just yogurt, water. You can put fruit in it if you want, and spices.
Oh.
And it is so good. And I'll put the recipe up. I make the one that I got at the restaurant. I looked up the recipe for, and they had like copycat recipes. I use vanilla yogurt, 1 cup, and it calls for rose water, which is a really common flavoring in Indian food. So I bought rose water off of Amazon. You put a little cardamom spice in there. You sweeten it. So I've been using my Swerve sweetener.
Oh, great.
And a little bit of water. And I usually put 2 frozen strawberries in there. And it is so good. It's a lot thinner than a smoothie.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but I
had never heard of it. Molly had them before. When we were in London, we went to this Indian restaurant with my friend and her daughter and all of their friends, and everybody got one, and they all got different flavors. I think mango is the most common, but I actually liked the rosewater one. So,
okay, well, that's
really
awesome.
Good.
Yeah, I'm a fan of something that my daughter found in Costco and talked me into buying. So I already had one of these for myself, an electric throw blanket. And I was enjoying that last year and not really sharing it with my family. And I think Lauren was like, hey, I want my own electric throw. So we were in Costco and they had a little different one than the one I have. Theirs was the Sunbeam Velveteen Plush Heated Throw, which all it means is that it was made a little differently. The material was a little different than mine. And then I think it actually heats up better than the other one that I had. If you want to enjoy watching TV in the evening, get yourself an electric throw. They are so comforting. And also, we have a cat, and it was like crack for cats. We had no sooner spread that electric blanket out on the couch, and Lauren was under it, when Benny, our cat, hopped up there, and he felt the warmth on his paws, and he immediately circled and laid down. It was just like, if you don't have a lap cat and you really want a lap cat, get an electric throw.
I need to try that.
Yes. You definitely need to try it. So I don't know if when this airs, Costco, they may or may not still have theirs, but you can get Sunbeam electric throws a lot of different places, and I think that you'll really enjoy it.
How much was it?
Well, the one in Costco was $29.99, but I've seen them, cheaper than that too at other places. So I don't think that I ever had an electric throw when I was a kid, so I hope that she appreciates it.
That's right.
All right, this was fun talking about all the things that were good and not so good in our childhood, and I hope all of our listeners had fun with it too.
It was fun.
It was.
All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. We're so happy you joined us today. If you'd like to get the show notes for today's episode, please email your name and address to midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com and write show notes in the subject line. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.